Hello, and thank you so much for tuning into the You Can Ball podcast. I'm your host, Mahi Jariwala. Today, we're joined by Kayla Padilla of the UPenn women's basketball team. How's your season going? And how is it like to have fans back in the arena again?
Oh, it's so awesome. I'm not sure if but the Ivy League was one of like the only conferences last season to not play. So, as much as I like enjoyed watching my friends get back on the court last year, it was kind of tough being on the sidelines, and just played like our first game and out of from like 100 or like 600 days plus it's been since we've had a game and to now finally be back, with the team and in front of fans for the first time. It's awesome. We've been working really hard, and just to kind of see that hard work come into fruition, despite like in spite of like how tough this past year has been, it's been really great.
And what was it like to play that first game after not playing for such a long time?
It was awesome. It kind of brought me back to like playing my first game ever at Penn and kind of just in college basketball in general, just because we had gone such a long time without playing any competition and just again, like you said, being without fans. So kind of got butterflies again for the first time and just obviously wanting to pick up where I left off after my freshman season and just I think the most important part was just like kind of making our mark and showing that, I know we haven't been here in a while, but we're back and we're ready to have a great season. So we had a really good first game, and I'm glad we started off on a high note.
How do you think you were able to be so positive going into that? Because I feel like a lot of people would be like, oh my God, we haven't played in a while. What if we suck? What if we're not at that level that we thought we were at?
Yeah, to be like fully transparent, I know our team did face a lot of that kind of like internal struggle of like, okay, yeah, we haven't played in a while. What if, it's not the same, or what if we're not good enough? But I think there were a lot of like factors just going into the season that really motivated us to want to do well. I think, not having played in such a long time was one, but also kind of like doing it in honor of the past two like senior senior classes who didn't get the chance to really compete for a full season. So just keeping that in mind and wanting to play for them, and obviously just kind of wanting to get back on the court for ourselves and to do something as a team.
Awesome. Well, I do want to backtrack a little bit to kind of just encapsulate your story. So, where did you grow up and how did you get into basketball?
Yeah, so I grew up in Southern California and lucky enough to be in a city that was so, I guess, like with a lot of people who just love the game and love basketball, like growing up with the whole like Kobe and Shaq duo and just, being able to go to Lakers games and Sparks games growing up. But also just me personally, my family is a big basketball family as well. I think being Filipino kind of has to do a lot with it. It's a culture that really is in love with the sport, both here in the US and over like in the Philippines as well. So a lot of those factors I think played into kind of my evolution into like playing and then getting more serious about it. But yeah, I just attribute it a lot to my family and just kind of being in a place where basketball was really valued and celebrated, especially like in the Asian American community. I think there was a lot of really good opportunities for me to play growing up in a place that was like safe and a place that really allowed me to grow in different ways.
And when do you think you started getting more serious about basketball?
Yeah, whenever anyone asks me these questions, I always like bring it back to one specific instance. So I like got into basketball. It was just like more for the snacks after games. But who doesn't do it for the snacks? But I
Yeah.
think my first tournament like in a different state was I think I was in like the fourth grade or something, and we went to Virginia
Oh.
for like AAU nationals. And I was like, wow, this is kind of getting serious. Like I'm traveling across the country just to play some games. And I think after that point, I started playing on more competitive teams, and I think I just kind of made the natural progression in terms of, like going to a good high school, getting like on the recruiting kind of um, like getting in front of coaches and playing on the right team. So I think it all started during that tournament in the fourth grade.
Playing at a national level, in fourth grade, what do you think built up to you even getting to that level at such a young age?
I think, as time went on in terms of me playing basketball, I just got more and more competitive. And I think, with that level of competition growing, I wanted to play against the best players and be, a part of a team that was competitive as well. And I think that eventually meant going places beyond California and venturing out to play teams who are from the East Coast who I'd probably never even get to play against. So I think I just kind of wanted to challenge myself in that regard.
And then like you talked a little bit about your recruiting process, but like what was that like and like what made you ultimately choose UPenn?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate to have a really good recruiting process. It did come with, like the level of stress in terms of like finally narrowing down like the school you want to actually go to for the next 4 years. But I kind of had my priorities in line from the get-go and knowing what I wanted from a school, and that was to, have a chance to be a part of a very competitive and successful basketball program while also making sure, that I was attending a school that could provide me a really good education. And at the end of the day, I think Penn was the best of both worlds, in terms of, the basketball program being one of the best in the Ivies. And I think, coming up to be like one of the best like in the mid majors. And then like you can't go wrong with an Ivy League education. I'm studying business and I get to go to school at Wharton, which is Penn's business school. So again, just the best of both worlds and kind of checking off the boxes and everything I wanted.
I mean, going to like the number one business school in the country, playing basketball at such a high level. I mean, how do you think you were able to like balance everything out? Because I think it's hard enough as like an Ivy League student trying to balance just the academics. And now when you have D1 basketball like on your plate as well, like how did you do that?
Well, I think it's important to like for people to know that more often than not, there are days when it's not all together. Like days are not balanced. And I don't have it all together. But I mean, I think, a lot of basketball players who make it to the collegiate level, it's been a practice in terms of time management that they've been going through for like a lot of a long time already. Like it even starts in high school, having to balance, academics and playing competitive sports. But obviously at the Ivy League, it's or just in college basketball in general, it's at a different level. But we have the support of our coaching staff and the team, and Penn has like some really great resources like to get with a tutor when you need help with the class or to go to office hours with the professor and luckily like a lot of the like Penn like teaching staff are huge fans of Penn women's basketball team, so it helps to talk to them and to kind of share what you're going through. But yeah, like I said at the beginning, it's important that for people to know that like a lot of the days you don't have it together, but it's all about prioritizing things and getting things done and just making time for the things that are important at the end of the day.
Like going through those rough days, I mean, how do you think you get through those?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has them, and I think it's important every day to do something that makes you happy, whether it's like small or, something big. Like, if I'm going through a rough day, maybe I'll go get like a boba or something. I love boba. Or I'm a huge like music fan and I play the guitar, so even if I have like tons of work to do, I'll like save 10 minutes just to like play my favorite song. So some just like finding the little things in every day to carve out some time to do those things and kind of take a break, and amidst all the stress.
Exactly. Like, what do you think a day in your life looks like?
Yeah, it's a bit it gets kind of sporadic, but like I guess in season, um, go to class. I usually have like 2 or 3 classes a day. All of our classes are in person this semester, which is a nice break from like Zoom life. And then usually like we block out practice from like 3 to 6, so that can like look like practicing for 2 hours and then like doing lifting for the last hour. And then, by that time, like your day has flown and it's time to like do homework and just kind of get everything you need to get done by the end of the night. And it kind of just repeats. I'm a night owl, so I don't mind staying up too late and then fueling myself with coffee for the next morning, I think is important. But yeah, that's kind of a typical day, and it depends, like if we're traveling for a certain game or anything, but that's like the normal schedule for me.
And like, what made you interested in business?
Yeah, like funny story. I was like all the way up until like my senior year of high school, like maybe senior fall, I was like convinced that I wanted to go to med school because I was such a big fan of Grey's Anatomy and I thought I wanted to be like Meredith Grey and be a surgeon. And then like one day I realized that I know it wasn't for me. Like I finally like took the time to see like, okay, I'd have to go to school for X amount of years and like, do I really want to do that? And then at the end of the day, I decided that it wasn't for me. And I kind of took a step back and thought about the things that I actually liked and the things that I was good at. And, some of those things were like more like quantitative things like math or just kind of critical thinking type stuff. And I'd already known at that point that I wanted to go to Penn and thought it would be a good opportunity to make probably get my foot in the door and try to get into Wharton. And I think things ended up working out from there. Going into Penn, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in business, but I knew I had the general idea. And now, after having taken, about 2 years of classes, I've finally like decided in majoring in finance and management. But it was definitely a journey. There was a lot of ups and downs. I mean, I thought I wanted to be a surgeon, and now I'm like doing the complete opposite. So yeah.
Like, what helped you like figure things out once you came here, not like came to Penn, not really knowing what you wanted to do?
I think overall, I was given a lot of reassurance in that it's okay to not know what you want to do, especially like your freshman and sophomore year. There's a lot of just figuring things out, not only academically, but like on the basketball team, like what's your role, and like even in the broader environment of like Penn, like where do you want to be, like what clubs do you want to be in, like who do you want to be on campus. So I think I made it a priority that I didn't just want to be a basketball player here at Penn. I wanted to be someone who is involved in bigger things just beyond athletics. So that meant like getting involved with like the Filipino club on Penn, like serving on student advisory boards, stuff like that. But I think it was good to know that, it was okay not to have it all figured out right away. And that it took time to, to see what you liked and to actually like be a part of those things.
Yeah, because I know you're involved with even like a lot of business clubs as well. I mean, where did you fit time in your schedule to do that?
I'm like a really big believer that you make time for the things that are important, and I think, a lot of the clubs are cognizant of like there's a large amount of student athletes, on campus, and kind of being able to tailor things around their schedule. But like there are days where it's packed, like you go from classes to practice to like maybe a club meeting, and if you really enjoy it, you'll make it work. And the things that I'm a part of, like I think it's all about quantity or quality over quantity. So it's not about like being like a part of like 1,000 clubs, but being a part of maybe like two or three that you're really passionate about and that you would make time on your schedule for.
And where do you think like this work ethic just comes from of like wanting to get things done? And I think for you specifically, it's like I feel like there's not a lot of people doing what you're doing. There's not a lot of people that are like playing basketball at high level, studying at like the number one business school, and like involved in all these other things. Like, what kept you going, and like what in the back of your head was like, okay, like you can do this when like no one else is really out here doing what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. But I think like ever since I was little, I've always been someone who is like really easily self-motivated. Um, and I don't know like how that came to be, but I've been able to like motivate myself and understand like what I want and what my goals are. But at the end of the day, I think it's all about purpose, and a lot of the things I do and aim to accomplish are, because of something, and a lot of that time it's because of my family and just kind of wanting to make them proud. And I mean, coming to Penn wasn't easy. Obviously, like they had to make the sacrifice of like one sending me here across the country and like not being able to see me all the time, and obviously like before that, everything from literally being a baby and to beyond, they've done so much for me. So a lot of what I do is for them. But in terms of just like things like the Sideline Post and things that, not a lot of other people are doing, I like uh, oftentimes like see a lot of opportunities and like realize that there's no one out there doing them. And I think I'm not afraid to like be a self-starter in that sense and just going out and like capitalizing on that, because if no one does it, then who will? And like I'm willing to take the chance to be that person who at least tries. If you fail, but you learn lessons. And luckily a lot of like the Sideline Post, I guess, is the biggest example of something that's, it was a big risk, and like I wasn't sure if it was going to be successful.
Like, when did you start Sideline Post, and like what was that first step in even like getting that started?
Yeah, so I started the Sideline Post in April of 2020, which was, just about like a year and a half ago. I had the idea around, a little while before it like became public, and I'd always been a big fan of the Players Tribune, which is like a professional platform where professional athletes can basically share their stories and kind of delve deep into kind of their personal lives and things you just wouldn't normally hear or read like when you see them on TV. And it's like the place where Kobe announced his retirement, so that's what I like to reference a lot. And that was like how I was introduced to the platform. And I realized that, like a lot of high level and like highly recognizable college like athletes were able to get on the platform, but I was wondering like, what if I wanted to have my story shared on the Players Tribune? That probably like wouldn't be able to happen. And so I was searching for a platform, not necessarily because I had a story, but like if the opportunity kind of arise, like could I have a platform to share it with? And I realized that there wasn't really anything. Um, and just because like I know so many other athletes like growing up and obviously just playing basketball, you come to like accumulate a lot of basketball players in your like personal network that I have tons of friends who had like amazing stories that are worth, sharing with the world. And I think people really benefit from hearing from them. So was sent home from college in March of 2020 just because of COVID. And I was like, okay, this is like the prime time to actually, start it now that I have some time on my hands. I'm not that busy. And yeah, we came out with our first story in April, and I think once people started to notice it, they've really have caught on to the mission of just kind of unveiling or like kind of unveiling the curtain behind like college athletes and showing like who they are beyond, just their stats and, their jersey number. And I've been lucky enough to really meet a lot of really great athletes and put out their stories and just kind of see like the chain reaction of like people reading their stories and finding people that can resonate with them, and it's been a really awesome experience so far.
And like, what was that very first step in like making the website? Like, did you design that yourself?
Yeah, so I had like it's actually funny. I had designed this whole website on my own through this like really janky
Wow.
platform. It wasn't good. And then I had a mentor actually like refer me to an actual site that I could use that would looked a lot better, and so I did it. I was like kind of like, "Oh my God, I've just spent like 2 months working on something that I thought I was really good in my own mind." And then I tried out this new website and it looks so much better and it's still the website we use now. But kind of just like adding on to that, there's been a lot of just kind of figuring things out. Like I'd never made a website before. I've never like, I don't know, worked out the details of like how to post like an Instagram ad or anything like that. So it's been fun just to kind of learn new things along the way. But yeah, definitely the website was the first step and definitely one of the biggest things I had to learn like right off the bat in terms of starting the platform.
Yeah, I mean, the power of stories is something that like I definitely resonate with through the podcast and getting to share people's stories, and I think that that can be really inspiring. Like, where did you think you kind of had that realization of just how important like sharing people's stories can be?
I think it's like kind of what I mentioned earlier, just like knowing the amount of people from that, like I've been able to befriend through basketball and just like knowing their stories, obviously because we've been friends for so long, but just like wondering like what would happen, if we were to share these stories with like
But like, I know that you were also like the Ivy League Rookie of the Year in 2020. I mean, what do you think like helped you make that transition to college basketball and like make an impact as a freshman?
yeah, I think I was really lucky to go to a really competitive high school. I went to Bishop Montgomery in Torrance, California. And they have just like a long-standing history of success. And I think I was really blessed to be able to have such great coaches leading up to like my college transition. My high school coach was Noelle Quinn, who's now the head coach of the WNBA championship team, the Seattle Storm. So like, I just have her in my back pocket to if I ever need anything or need some advice. So she was definitely a big, impact in terms of like making this transition somewhat easier, seamless. Um, and at the end of the day, I think a lot of people coming into college basketball are kind of complacent that they've made it. Like, yes, I got the scholarship. I'm finally like in college. Like, maybe now I don't have to, work as hard or do as much. But I think she was one of the biggest people to tell me that, like, don't just be at college. Like, do something. Be like, make an impact. And I think I really took that to heart. And I think at Penn, especially just the coaching staff was really, great in terms of letting me kind of be who I am on the court and not trying to like put me in a box and, you know, giving opportunities to freshmen like me to play in games and to make an impact. I think just having their trust was super important and allowed me to be myself um and just, have a good season in terms of like, I was never really focused on like the individual accolades. I was more so like hoping we'd be able to compete for the Ivy League championship, which we unfortunately didn't because of COVID. But I think, with hard work, like the results come, whatever form that may be.
Yeah. And like in high school, like what do you think made like your experience so good? Like what do you think prepared you so well for college?
Yeah, again, just like going back to the high level of coaching and just like the amount of competition, like really elite competition that we've had, just like thinking about a few games. like we'd play Windward, which like I bet like half of their team probably went D1. Like one of the people I played against, like Charisma Osborne, she goes to UCLA. Or like we play against Sierra Canyon, which I think was like the number one team in the nation when we played them. And one of their girls is at Texas, one of their girls is at Duke. So you're like basically playing people who are going to be at really top teams once they get to college, but you're just playing them in high school. So I think that level of competition really helped me in understanding, what it means to compete and what it means to play against good players and how that can, help yourself. And I think that just made it a seamless transition, being that you were going from a competitive platform in high school to, just another competitive platform in college.
And like more recently, you partnered with Homecourt Edge Basketball. Do you want to talk about your partnership with them?
Yeah, sure. So I was really happy when all this like NIL laws came into action, as of this past July, just because I think college athletes, should have the opportunity to like monetize their name, image, and likeness just based on everything, we have the potential of doing. And I mean, I didn't really know how to take advantage of it at first. But luckily my trainer is the founder and like CEO of Homecourt Edge, he came to me with the idea of like maybe collaborating on a like merchandise line that would be able to kind of like introduce my brand to not my fans, but just like people who I know and who have been like supporting me in my journey for a long time. And I thought there was like no better kind of mutually beneficial opportunity for me to like one start my NIL journey and for two like to promote his like training company as well. And so like we developed like this shirt and my logo, and that came out like a few months ago, and it's been just such an awesome experience, just kind of seeing the behind the scenes work of what goes on in terms of how to like promote a certain product, and then also just kind of being able to share a piece of me and who I am with people who have supported me for such a long time, and it's been a really great journey. Like we're continuing like the process of releasing more stuff, so it's been really exciting.
Like, what have you learned so far with that? Like on the business aspect as well of it, because I know you're interested in that.
Yeah, I think it's important to like know what people want, putting yourself in like the customer's shoes. Obviously like a shirt is a shirt, but like in terms of the logo, like what would people wear, like what's like meaningful. And I think the logo is a big part of obviously like making, the product what it is. I wanted to make sure it was like a reflection of me, but also like a reflection of the certain aspects of my life who have made me me. And I think the logo really highlights kind of like my Filipino culture, and I knew, obviously just because of my family and a lot of my close friends kind of sharing that similar like cultural experience, to be able to represent that through the shirt. And also just like when it breaks down to it, just like certain designs and like knowing how to place the logo, just like because I know, especially like teenagers and like young people are not gonna like I know what they're not gonna wear. I know like not to put out certain things. So just being able to like know who your target customer is and like seeing how to best promote it.
And like about your Filipino heritage, like how do you think that impacted you just being like an Asian American basketball player?
Yeah, I think just like from the beginning, like I think a lot of the about Filipino culture is like valuing hard work, and I think that's been able to kind of guide me along this whole basketball journey. But I think it's really prevalent right now, just being that in the Ivy League and honestly college basketball itself, there's like not a lot of Asian American representation, especially like Filipino representation. So I take that really to heart in terms of like knowing that I'm able to represent, something bigger than myself. And being able to do so in a way, that reflects the culture and all its like goodness. So I thought it was again like correlating it back to the shirt to emphasize that in like who I am, just because it's been such a big part of like my basketball journey and overall just kind of life.
Yeah, and lastly, do you have any advice for girls that are looking to pursue basketball at a high level?
Yeah, I would just say as simple as it is, just to kind of trust the process in terms of like knowing that you'll end up where you need to end up. There were a lot of like bumps in the road and just roller coasters and like the journey leading up to me committing to Penn and finally going there. And a lot of like questioning as to like whether I'd end up in the right place. But I think if you put the work in and just kind of focus on yourself and do what you need to do, that the results will, kind of reflect, what's meant for you and like what you need to do. So I would just say that, to trust the journey, and to also like not kind of underestimate like how important it is to do well in the classroom, because don't think I would have been able to get to Penn if I wasn't like a good student in high school. And I think sometimes people kind of just think you have to be a really good basketball player to go to good school, but you got to kind of back it up with the academics. So I definitely say that as well.
Okay, well, thank you so, so much again.
Of course, thank you.